Okay, so hello again. Welcome back from the coffee break, from the very short coffee break. It's my pleasure to start now with the second panel of the day, which will be focusing on the youth employment in the AI era, youth guarantee in the Western Balkans, of course, challenges and opportunities. Before I start, I'll introduce myself. I'm Brikena Berisha, researcher from Kosovo, and it's really my distinct pleasure to be the moderator of this panel. Taking into account my work also through this project where we have had the chance to give insight through some research policy papers and also collaborating with institution, networks, youth organization across the region, I'm really saying that moderating this discussion is something I value deeply, especially in a kind of like this format of conference, being held simultaneously in 5 cities across the Western Balkans. So kudos to the Center for Democracy in Belgrade and also to the Kosovar Stability Initiative here in Pristina for coordinating this event, and also all other organizations in other cities. I'm not alone here today. Probably you have the chance to see it through your TVs. I'm here with Sajmira Kopani, who is a distinct panelist here, coming from International Labour Organization in Kosovo and working extensively on labor market and employment strategies related especially to the youth integration into the workforce. With us today is also Anil Gashi, who comes here from the Employment Agency of the Republic of Kosovo, who is one of the institutions in the front line, especially in implementing and executing the Youth Guarantee Scheme. With us today will be also 4 other panelists. Is Sara Zekaj, a youth expert from the Youth Policy Network in Albania. Hello, Sara, and thank you for joining us today.
Now you can hear me.
Yeah, okay, Sara, welcome. It's Mariana Angelova, is Secretary General of the National Youth Council of Macedonia, representing youth advocacy from Skopje. Welcome, Mariana. Is Mariana hearing us? Okay, so maybe the studio from Skopje is still connecting. I will continue with Sarajevo and concretely with Ljiljana Panjic. It's delegation of the European Union to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Ljiljana, welcome again. Because
good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. And last but not least, Jovan Protic, who comes also from International Labour Organization, but this time from Serbia, and who will enrich our and complement our discussion on this. Jovan, welcome.
Hi, nice seeing you, and good afternoon to all of you.
Thank you very much. Also, I would like to introduce our facilitator, which will help frame our conversation. It's Erblin Ajdini, a very renowned civil society activist from Kosovo, who has been engaged in youth policy, civic participation, and democratic development. He will raise some key concerns that we will then discuss through our conversation. Okay, before I give the floor to Erblin, I would just like to say that today we meet in a moment of rapid transformation. We have the rise of artificial intelligence, which is reshaping labor market. However, we still have some very old new issues in our labor market. As such, all Western Balkan countries are implementing or are developing the implementation of Youth Guarantee Scheme, which is a very important mechanism in not only offering employment, education, training, but also creating inclusive, responsive, and supportive ecosystem. As such, Erblin will give some key concerns, and then we will continue with the conversation. Erblin, the floor is yours. You can sit there, but you can give us your key concerns. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Brikena. Hi from everywhere. My name is Erblin Ajdini, and I'm a civil society activist here in Kosovo. I would like to start talking about the youth guarantee and also like focus on the AI, on the digitalization part, and other parts that I can kind of like give it as a summary, but also I would like to enrich it by the discussions that we will be producing by our panelists and from all around the region. So the Youth Guarantee is a government commitment to ensure that every young person under the age of 30, in some context even at the age of 25, in some EU context, to receive a good quality offer of employment, continued education, apprenticeship, or a traineeship within 4 months of being unemployed or leaving education. Beyond its direct benefits for young people, the Youth Guarantee has a transformative impact on the broader macroeconomic environment. It acts as a catalyst for innovation, structural reform, and long-term economic resilience. In 2020, the European Union strengthened its Youth Guarantee by adopting an enhanced framework. This renewed commitment supports the creation of youth employment opportunities to encourage youth entrepreneurship and help young people harness the growing opportunities arising from digital and green transitions. Following the Council's recommendation of October 2020, all EU member states committed to implement the enhanced Youth Guarantee. The program not only supports millions of unemployed young people entering a modern workforce, but also focuses on reaching those who face long-standing and complex barriers to employment. At the EU Western Balkan Ministerial Meeting on Employment and Social Affairs, which was held in Brdo, Slovenia in July 2021, Western Balkan governments endorsed a declaration to gradually implement the Youth Guarantee across the region. Kosovo, with the youngest population in Europe, has extraordinary potential that could become a strong driver of social and economic development. Yet it also faces some of the most significant labor market challenges, including the highest unemployment and youth unemployment rates in the region. Preparatory work for implementing the Youth Guarantee in Kosovo has begun, but more work is needed to be done in order to be fully rolled out. However, the 2025 progress report highlights positive developments, particularly in the accelerated reforms of the Labor Inspectorate, the continued piloting of the social assistance reforms, and concrete efforts to advance the Youth Guarantee, which also was one of the formal recommendations. Well, today we will be talking about the AI era. Digitalization plays a crucial role in empowering young people. It opens access to global labor markets, supports remote and freelance work opportunities, and facilitates modern job search tools. It also creates entirely new roles in the digital economy and increases efficiency across traditional sectors by integrating modern digital tools. While I was surfing on the internet and looking at reports, even the report that this project has done, I have found so many recommendations, but I would like to update my recommendations by following the discussions and the topics that we'll be raising in this respective panel. So I'll look forward to the panel discussion and to listen very thoroughly and cast recommendations and conclusions, which I would have the privilege to summarize and share it at the end of this panel. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Erblin. Be very concentrated. You will have 10 minutes at the end to elaborate the recommendation. So take opportunity of this very diverse panel and very inclusive in the sense of the regional area. I don't want to be mean, but I will be very strict in sense of the time. I also have pressure outside. So we will have 2 questions inside here in the panel. And then I will give floor to the other panelists in other studios who will have each 5 minutes to elaborate the question or the context that we will be talking about. The role will be as it is in the agenda. So immediately, without losing time, I will start with the first panelist here, with Sajmira from International Labour Organization. And I know the focus of International Labour Organization in the Balkan, but also here in Kosovo, and also your focus. I would like your perspective. We will start with the main challenges in implementing the Youth Guarantee scheme in Kosovo, and maybe you can then desegment which part is more challenging and how it's being addressed in Kosovo. Thanks.
Thank you, Brikena. It is indeed a great pleasure to be here today with you and to discuss about the Youth Guarantee, which is the most effective and efficient activation scheme for the young people who are not in employment, neither in training in the European Union. However, even during the summit, Western Balkan economies were aware that this is quite ambitious compared to where they would stand, because it implies structural reforms and a wide range of policy interventions to support the sustainable labor market integration of young needs. At the end of the day, Youth Guarantee is a commitment, a promise for each and every young person that goes into the public employment services of the Western Balkan economies, that they will receive a good quality offer of employment, apprenticeship, training, or education. And here there will be other colleagues that will follow up and discuss more in details what are the challenges, but it is important to emphasize the good quality offer within a very short time frame. And the Western Balkan economies knew that this is not going to be a very, it would be a long journey. However, we should all be very proud because the latest European enlargement reports confirm the progress that is achieved. When it comes to concrete challenges, I would emphasize as the first one, the limited data of the target group. Because the Youth Guarantee is an activation scheme and it should actually support those most vulnerable and who are totally out of the labor market and not receiving any type of support. So in this regard, being more aware of their characteristics would support us to have better services, as well as to diversify the offers that would go towards them. If I go more into details, we take a considerable percentage of young people who are out of the labor market are people with disabilities. And we will need concrete programs that may be flexible working hours, but to be brought at a national level, not only project-based. Or we have considerable, it is 13% of young people who are out of the labor market due to the family responsibilities. And first we need to understand why this is it, and then to find ways on how to deal with it. Another concerning number is the percentage of individuals that are out of the labor market, but they believe that there are no possibilities out there. And here in Kosovo, according to the micro data, it is 23% of those that are out of the labor market, they believe that there are no opportunities, which implies that we should really take action to, first of all, identify, that's why we need data, then we need to contact and engage them, which we will need very good services, and if need be, even going and working individually with each and every of them. However, there is progress. There is already an outreach model designed for Kosovo, which will be entrusted to NGOs here, especially the youth, those dealing with young people, because they are most better placed to do so. However, based on the latest assessment of their capacities, there is a gap. That's why we will need really to work closely with them to increase their capacities so that we are sure that each and every service that goes to the young people is standardized. And we don't discourage them further, but we try to bring them closer and make sure that once they reach the public employment service, they will be served and they will be beneficiaries of the Youth Guarantee and not come back to the scheme after a few years. I will leave it here and I'll be happy to answer any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for giving, let's say, this optimistic viewpoint and with the current situation with the implementation of Youth Guarantee Scheme. We have here Anil, as I mentioned, from the employment agency, which Anil can also elaborate the responsibility of this agency within the implementation of the Youth Guarantee Scheme. And maybe he can also let us know more about operational and challenges or practical challenges that are being observed during the implementation of the Youth Guarantee, let it be on the strategies or inclusiveness or other peculiarities.
Thank you, Brikena. I will start and share more from the institutional perspective. So when we talk about good programs, or maybe that I'm from the institutional part, the biggest challenges lies on the implementation part from the institutional side. So starting with the Youth Guarantee, which I strongly agree with Sajmira, it's one of the best initiatives. Our main problem was the lack of human resources that would deal with the beneficiaries. So since we would be talking also about the lessons learned, the moment that we started implementing the youth guarantee, we started to have new hires, so job counselors who would deal with the potential beneficiaries. So in that point, we have immediately made progress in the first year by adding and increasing the number of people who would be dealing directly with the need category. On the operational side, practically, one of the biggest challenges was the system that we had, which a potential beneficiary may come, but then he doesn't show on the list when they benefit, because the system doesn't segregate youth guarantees beneficiaries as separate category. On that part, we thank ILO, who has supported us on upgrading the system. So this year it is ready, so we have better indicators on how the situation is functioning. Another challenge, which is a big one, is that a potential candidate may come and he has the need for a training. As an agency, we have 8 vocational training centers in Kosovo, which are free of charge. So the job counselor immediately refers him and he goes to get a training. But then due to the lack of accreditation for certain profiles, he doesn't figure as a beneficiary. But realistically, he is a beneficiary because he comes as someone who is not in employment or nor in training, and then he gets trained and then gets a job, but doesn't show immediately in the 4 months that we have. That is one of the challenges that we have. We have a big number of intakes, but then when it comes to the people who have benefited, we have a lower number. But realistically, as an institution, we look at them in overall, so the number is much larger than it appears on paper. Another one of the challenges that we have is the fragmentation of platforms. As people in this room may be aware, but not the people in the other rooms, is that as a Kosovo government, we have a platform which is called Superpuna or Super Jobs. So it's an online matchmaking platform which doesn't follow all the criteria that Youth Guarantee has. So a person who is in the need category, he may find a job or a mentorship. As a government, we subsidize those salaries, but at the end, he doesn't appear on the numbers that we have. So there are a lot of challenges, but each time we face one, we are trying to do at least a solution to improve the situation. So considering that currently we have only 2 regions where we're implementing the youth guarantee as a piloting phase, we are trying to do the lessons learned as much as we can into solutions, so we are ready when we do the full rollout. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anil, for giving the context from, let's say, more the practical and the technical issues. I will continue with you because I would like now, in this part of questions, to focus more in the technology and the relation with the labor market specifically. So if we are talking about youth guarantee scheme and these issues in implementing it, that sometimes can be more technical, sometimes can even be wider. Can we say that youth guarantee can help you, young people, and prepare for the technological changes that the labor market is facing, or is this a very ambitious issue to talk about now?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the key benefits that Youth Guarantee will bring. I will talk about 2 different cases where with international partners, we are already working on improving the situation because the AI and the advancement of technology, it's changing the labor market completely. So last year, we had an AI bootcamp supported by one of our international partners, and the category of people that we wanted to attract to come to the bootcamp initially looked that it was too ambitious, but then when we saw the results, we saw that people are ready to at least start and follow the journey of becoming employable in the time of AI. The second part is that for the first time last year, Employment Agency has started to implement this voucher scheme. So basically a young person, he comes, he gets the voucher scheme in IT sector. So we had 22 programs in software development and all IT fields. So people up to 29 would come, receive a voucher, and then follow a certain training. We traced the data, and we saw that people get employed immediately after following the training. That is one of the key points where we're trying to work with the Youth Guarantee, is to go above and beyond the trainings that we currently provide as an employment agency, which are more the type of traditional trainings. And in the same time, we will start and buy services, so with external training operators. And we are looking forward that the Youth Guarantee would support this journey where they can support the beneficiaries to get the training from the best there is in the market. Of course, accreditation will still remain one of the key problems because the rules in Kosovo make it quite hard, and it's a long procedure until the training gets accredited. And then the moment there is changes, there is the need to again adjust the accreditation on that. And I believe that technology is much faster than the procedures that we have, so it's bringing challenges. But definitely, and especially the regional initiatives that can be joint initiatives between Western Balkan countries, where we work together on preparing, because someone who is employed today in Kosovo in the time of that trend already. We have high numbers of BPO companies in Kosovo who employ people here and then work for abroad, and we want to increase that number because it makes one global market. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anil. It's very nice to hear, you know, the relation between technology and the current labor market. Of course, there are challenges, especially when there is bureaucracy and technology, and then there is Balkan in there. But however, I believe that with complementing work like this, we can achieve to do great things. I will continue with Sajmira now before giving the floor to other panelists in other studios. Maybe from a regional perspective, how can countries adapt to the Youth Guarantee, taking into the account their specific national context? So do you see, I mean, you are also working now here in Kosovo, in Pristina, but you come also from Albania, have a wide experience in different countries. How would you take into account the national context, then especially related to the technological changes and the labor market differences?
Honestly, despite how similar the Western Balkan economies might look like, the more into depth you go, you realize that ready-made interventions do not bring the wished results. That's why the EU set up a framework for the Youth Guarantee Implementation Plan, which has to be country-specific and specifying all the reforms as well as the initiatives that are to be taken within a time frame. Luckily, all the Western Balkan economies have already undergone through this exercise. 5 of them already adopted the Youth Guarantee Implementation Plans. Some are in full rollout, so some going on with the piloting. Bosnia and Herzegovina has like solid drafts of Youth Guarantee Implementation Plan at the entity level. Very soon, we expect to have it adopted at a national level. And just to summarize how they came up to this level is based on the legal and policy reviews, labor market data analysis, and human resource availability. As Anil mentioned, it's very important to realize, I mean, who will be the individuals delivering, and also the needs, like the existing capacities and further needs for improvement. But very important is also the governmental priorities, the budgets that are available. So they are like, it is a puzzle, and you have to take into consideration and to balance all this in order to come up with an actionable plan, so that you can really like reach the targets and serve those most in need. When it comes to the technical changes, it comes with advantages and disadvantages. One of the main advantages is the fact that it brings more opportunity for young people, and this was confirmed also by the representative of Public Employment Service here in Kosovo. We can reach more through digitalized services. We can improve services counting on the technology. However, despite of how many job opportunities are over there are disadvantages for young people that are like really getting into this, for like not just to enter, because it's easy to enter. However, they are not paying the social protection, and they don't realize the advantages of being part of such scheme, or very often there are uncertainties regarding their legal relationship. I mean, there is no like employment relationship, the employer and the employee. There is an intermediator, usually it is platforms, and you are working in totally different continents. And this has to be regulated at the national level. So, and I mean, this all like brings up uncertainties, and also we have realized in the latest assessments that it is also contributing to informality and everything associated with it.
Yeah.
Actually, thank you very much for your inputs. You mentioned a lot of things, each very important to the issue, to the topic we are discussing. I will thank the other panelists in other studios for the patience. And now it's time to continue with our panelist in Tirana with Sara. I don't know if Sara is seeing.
I'm here.
Okay, Sara. Now, because we tried to mention a bit the national context and the differences, of course, the similarities. However, can you give us a view? How is the situation with Albania in implementing the youth guarantee? What are the challenges, and especially how is being taken into account the technological changes of the labor market now, and especially, or is this being prepared for the future changes?
Okay, as a start, thank you so much for inviting me today, and përshëndetje Pristina, and dober dan to all the other countries. I want to congratulate you first on the organization of such a massive event, because I think it takes a lot of effort to do this conference in 5 countries, different countries, and connect them online. But I'm so happy to see you all. Like most of my life, I have actually worked on civil society and a lot with young people and communities in different areas of Albania. And I think right now, like I have followed a little bit the starting of implementation and piloting of youth guarantee in 3 cities in Albania. And what I see as a main challenge is actually the outreach to the young people. From my experience, when we have these events, conferences, and new programs, it's always like the most outgoing young people coming, the most active ones, the most like maybe like the best students. But our main target should be actually the quiet ones, the shy ones, the ones that maybe are not that so good at school, because those are the ones who face more challenges than after. So in this regard, I think outreaching is the main thing on how to reach all these young people in these areas of Albania. Now it's in 3 main big cities, but let's take in consideration that there are other rural parts of Albania, other cities which are more far away from Tirana than the Shkodra and Vlora. So like another thing, I think it's the engagement or like cooperation between all these stakeholders who should be part of this. And by that I mean the employment offices, the education, the schools, the vet schools, the other institutions, the social services. All this should come together and not and work on how to make it accessible and known to all the young people in Albania. And I think in this regard, I think AI can help us. Actually, I'm not a very fan of using AI on recruiting, especially on young people, but I think it can support in prediction of the labor market and what will the trends of the labor market will be, and maybe according to this also the curriculums and the education can take notes and organize themselves. But also in terms of operational efficiencies, it can be very helpful because I think it can support our institutions to streamline case management and services. Like when I was invited for this event, I saw some of the questions, and one of them which really was important to me was engaging private sector, which is the really important stakeholder when we talk about employment and employment of young people. And actually what I did, because as I told you, I have like for the last many years I worked in civil society, So I talked to my friends who work in private sector, who own businesses, and I told them, give me some ideas. Like, what do you think? How we get companies, big companies or private sector engaged? And what they told me is really interesting, actually, because some of them told me that they now are planning maybe to like organize themselves like kind of like schools or trainings, so they can train the young people and prepare them for their labor market, for the company. So I think what they mean is like they should be like part of co-designing and co-funding maybe programs, and so we can map to real jobs. And also, I think we should make it a little bit more attractive for these businesses and private sector to enter, maybe to have some like wage subsidies and maybe like public recognition schemes for them, or make it easier for like in the legal way and administrative ways to all these steps for hiring young people. And if I still have time, I have one thing that I always lobby and advocate about, which is about flexible working hours. In Albania, at least. I don't know how it is in the other Western Balkan countries. But yeah, one challenge that we overlook is this lack of part-time and flexible job opportunities for young people. I mean, it in the labor code, Albanian labor code, we have it. Part-time is allowed, but in our then labor market culture, it's not implemented that much. It's also maybe the business structure that does not allow it. But sometimes when I talk to like businesses or institutions, and I tell them that when I was a student in the UK, I had the opportunity to work 2 hours per day at the library of the school. And they're like, oh, but like, that's not enough time for you to do the, like, commit to the work. But actually I was doing real work for maybe 2 or 4 hours a day, according to my free time as a student. And they see it as low commitment, temporary, and maybe they use it only for seasonal jobs. But here comes with other consequences, because then we enter to the black market of working, and that's not what we want for the young people. So I think also Albania doesn't have real frameworks or programs for student employment, which I think should be another thing from the youth guarantee. And maybe like universities should have like jobs listings for students, and I think the whole ecosystem is missing on this, but I find it a really really good thing for young people. I see many of them, they want to work, but at the same time they want to have good grades and have a lot of studies. So I think it's better for them to find a balance, to maintain themselves, to work, to earn experience, at the same time following their studies. I think I said most of the things that I wanted to say, so thank you.
Thank you very much, Sara, for enriching the conversation in a different perspective, as coming from the labor market itself as a youth expert and activist, and raising several issues regarding to cooperation with private sector, flexible hours, and student employment. Very important issues that maybe we can also address at the end if we have time. I will continue with Skopje now and give the floor to Mariana to show her perspective on the National Youth from the National Youth Council on how she sees the implementation on the country context of Youth Guarantee Scheme, and how is the situation with youth employment in Macedonia in general. Mariana, do we have now Mariana connected?
Hear me?
Yeah, now we see you very well and hear you also.
Okay, perfect. Sorry for the technical difficulties before. My name is Mariana. I'm working for the National Youth Council of Macedonia. First of all, I'd like to congratulate everyone organizing this kind of conference and keeping us all together, but kind of apart. I think it's basic and it's a good practice all the organizations and projects should use.
On the point of youth guarantee, I hope to give a little bit of a different perspective, because North Macedonia is one of the countries that is implementing the youth guarantee from 2018 to 2019, if I'm not mistaken. And the difference from what is happening now across the region is
Mariana, please, can you speak louder, or maybe the technician can raise the voice, because we hear you in a very low level.
it better now?
Yeah, much better.
Okay. So as I said, North Macedonia is implementing the youth guarantee, actually piloted the youth guarantee in 2018 and 2019. And the difference from what is happening across the region right now is that the story for us began in the early 2016, where the National Youth Councils and a group of youth organizations actually initiated the implementation based on the lessons learned that we had from our counterparts, national youth councils from countries across the European Union. And considering that we've been at this for 6 years with short breaks during the COVID pandemic, of course, there have been a lot of challenges that we learned exist and that we're trying to overcome, but that there have been a lot of lessons learned in the process. And one of the challenges I hear everyone before me mentioning is, of course, the outreach programs, or the ways to reach young people that are targeted by the youth guarantee, which are young people that are not in education, not in employment or training. And of course, as all the data presented shows, those are the young people that are in the very marginalized groups in the country, countries across the region, of course. What is happening in North Macedonia on this topic, and what we started even in the piloting phase, is involving youth organizations as a mechanism to find, reach, and motivate, because the biggest problem is not finding, rather motivating young people that are within these groups to actually trust the employment agency, trust the program, and be there to see if it actually works or not. We, for the 5th year now, we do have the outreach program that is implemented, unfortunately, only for 2 months throughout the year, in which we have local organizations and local field workers that basically go to the places where you can most often find young people that are not registered in any of the institutions of the system. These are very, very rural areas. Social support centers, youth centers are becoming to be a place where we can easily gather those young people now that we have them in certain municipalities in the country. So I would like to form this maybe as a recommendation for the other Western Balkan countries, is to early on involve the youth organizations and early on consult and plan together how to reach the young people that are targeted by the youth guarantee. It's not always all green and pink, and we're not all happy with the implementation, of course, even though we've been doing it for a long time. What I would say the challenges are maybe the dependency of the youth guarantee scheme, at least in North Macedonia, on the funding of international donors, which also brings the point of sustainability and how we can maintain not the offer can be easily maintained, but rather the supporting activities that do actually motivate and bring young people to the employment centers, in our case, to use the offers provided by them. And another challenge, and glad it was also mentioned before, is the involvement of the private sector. I've had the opportunity to be in a meeting where we discussed how the youth guarantee is implemented in the European countries, especially this positive example that we had from Slovakia. The private sector there plays a very big role in actually financing the youth guarantee. What the European private sector usually and in most cases understand and what is lacking here in the Western Balkan countries is that this is a program that will provide companies with ready-to-work employees. And if you want to have ready-to-work employees, you have to invest something, not just expect something to be received from the institutions. And that's why I strongly advocate. Again, it's kind of difficult here because we already have this practice, but to countries that are planning and that are starting early on with the youth guarantees to involve the private sector early on and to discuss with them what kind of job skills are needed, what kind of profiles of employees are needed, and encourage them to invest into the program that will provide them with the employees that they actually need, because all the studies, of course, show that the Western Balkan countries are struggling with business sectors, are struggling with employing actually people with capacities to the job. So those are maybe the two things that are challenges, but are also lessons learned that we can use. And when it comes to technology, it's another thing that's also a challenge and maybe lacking in North Macedonia is, it was mentioned before, having digital services from the employment agency and from the social service centers. This is also something that's going very slow in at least in North Macedonia. I don't know about the other Western Balkan countries, but for example, North Macedonia has about 30 employment centers around the country. Many of them are far from smaller cities, from rural areas, and which makes it difficult for young people that are actually needs because they are geographically in those rural and small areas to reach the employment center and to receive any kind of offer. So digitalizing the services, not only for employment, but for every service that's for young people is something that is very relevant currently in our countries in this context. Otherwise, I think that the rise of AI could only be a tool that can be utilized and is actually utilized by young people around the countries to make them more efficient and more effective. But it's not a tool that is utilized by institutions or the business sector. So rather than seeing it as a threat or as something that will make employment more difficult for young people, for now, for the development that our countries are in, of course, I rather see it as another opportunity to increase efficiency and effectiveness of everything that we're doing. I'll stop now.
Thank you very much, Mariana, for giving us a different perspective now coming from the Youth Council in designing the outreach program, inclusiveness, especially including youth organization, and then the involvement of the private sector. So having diverse perspectives, now we'll go to Sarajevo with Liliana, who comes from the delegation of the European Union to Bosnia and Herzegovina. Liliana, from your perspective now, can you share your opinion with the implementation of this mechanism and your approach to challenges or maybe even opportunities of country and intervention of European Union where necessary to improve the issues we are raising here, but also maybe issues that are more relevant to the Bosnia national context?
Thank you. Okay, so this would be a perspective of an institution which actually instigated the implementation, adoption, and later implementation of the youth guarantee. From perspective of Bosnia and Herzegovina, you probably know that the country still does not have the youth guarantee implementation plan. It is still in this drafting process, but we hope that during next year that they will have a fully fledged and adopted youth guarantee implementation plan, which is a prerequisite for all other next steps. What is important, I'm not going to repeat what other colleagues said, but what is important really to stress here is that youth guarantee, it is not merely a policy, it is actually a reform process. And it actually triggers the reforms at multi-sectoral level. So it means that the countries will have to implement the reforms with regard to statistics, the functioning of the labor market institutions, primarily the public employment services, which in the countries are taking the lead in implementation of the youth guarantee. Education institutions, because without the proper joint forces with the education system, you cannot have a fully fledged implementation of the youth guarantee. This is really a necessity. Then we top up with additional actors. We know we need employers, we need the civil sector, society, organizations, youth organization would be a crucial, like in Bosnia and Herzegovina, you probably know that country is very much decentralized, which has actually presented an obstacle in the preparation of the youth guarantee implementation plan, because you know that the competencies are at entity and Brčko district level, and at countrywide there is only a coordination role. So whatever comes in implementation of youth guarantee, it is really going to necessitate really the concerted efforts of all the relevant institutions in order to implement the youth guarantee. Like what I see, you know, for Bosnia and Herzegovina, that there is a list of reforms that they will have to implement. Certain reforms would certainly be a prerequisite to start piloting the youth guarantee. For example, first one is regarding the statistics. For example, you know, the needs are actually in statistics, they are presented in general, but this data will need to be disaggregated in terms of active and inactive needs. We did certain research a few years ago when we started drafting the plan and providing the technical assistance for the drafting the youth guarantee implementation plan. And for example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's a bit discouraging, but over 30% of the needs category have declared that they don't want or they don't need to work at all. So we will have to start with this disaggregation of these youth so that we can focus on the ones which are willing to partake in this process. I mean, that is only like one small reform which will need to be implemented, just for you to get the notion. And then also the public employment services. Yeah? They will have to, now we are also, you're mentioning the AI. I think that still we don't implement AI at all within the public system appropriately, but this will need to be done as well. Maybe the youth guarantee will trigger this also for the other sectors, because we need to start with digitalization. Like in majority of cases, like this improper digitalization in countries is actually an obstacle to such policies implementation. So this will really need to be overcome very soon. And then it ups up with AI, and especially the tools which, especially the youth, which are very much familiar with these tools, will have to use in implementation of the youth guarantee. And I think that they could be very much beneficial for everybody. So I think like this is like in brief, enough for Bosnia and Herzegovina. We still don't have the implementation, but I think what the good things, maybe the accent was actually more on the bad things because we are lagging behind the other countries in the Western Balkans. Maybe the good thing is that we can learn from the other countries, from their mistakes and lessons learned in the process, because obviously some countries, I think, in my opinion, they started piloting process without necessary reforms being implemented. So they had to one step behind, yeah? So maybe for Bosnia and Herzegovina, because we will have this, like a better overview of these steps which will need to be omitted in the piloting process. So I could actually emphasize this as a good thing, as a knowledge that we could use in country to implement it better. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liliana. Actually, yeah, seeing the glass full, sometimes it's not the best to be the first one. So other countries can take lessons and maybe improve the process before starting and needing them to adjust other legislative frameworks or reforms or other stuff. Last but not least, with the panelists, I will go now to Belgrade studio and give the floor to Jovan from International Labour Organization, who maybe can present now even a wider outlook of labor trends in Serbia, the implementation of youth guarantee schemes and other related things to our topic.
Sure. Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me. And thanks for organizing this multi-studio event today. Well, a lot of things that I had in mind were already mentioned by the previous colleagues, especially knowing that Sajmira and I come from the same organization. But as you said, one thing that's my advantage is my long-standing institutional memory, because I've been here for quite some time. And, we started dealing with the issue of youth guarantee back at a time where Serbia's youth unemployment was like 26.5%. And the need rate was roughly the same. Well, now, as a result, unfortunately, of mainly negative demographic trends, not so much of economic growth, these figures have gone down tremendously. So now, overall unemployment is in single digits. Need rate is around 12-13%. But then again, a lot of challenges have remained. And one thing I want to mention is that, within this, let's say, 10-year period roughly, we had a couple of interventions. The very first one was actually giving a message to the Serbian authorities when they, speculated about youth guarantee for the first time, that this measure, as effective as Sajmira says, is also very costly, both in terms of economic and human resources. So there was a worry on our side that it could choke off the National Employment Service. And that's why the recommendation was, go ahead with the piloting, and then we'll see to what extent you're ready for the overall country-level intervention. And just to tell you what I mean is that even back then, when the proportion within the National Employment Service of counselors versus auxiliary staff was 70 to 30%, we were advising Serbia, you need to go up to 80-20. And that's the message that goes out to all other economies of the Western Balkans. Well, guess what? In 2020, when we look at them again, the proportion declined to 59-41. Now it's even below 50%. So the worry is if they move on as they announced that they would, expand the measure from the 3 pilot districts onto the entire economy as of 2027, that this may have severe consequences on the workload of the small number of counselors. That's why I was kind of encouraged to hear from Anil that, in Kosovo, at least you're hiring counselors. Here, it's not really been the case. And it's not only about sheer numbers, it's also about processes within the National Employment Service, because what you do need is to relieve those people of the administrative burden. You make sure that only the back office people do the, legal and other matters, whereas counselors dedicate as much time as possible to the job seekers, whereby, a lot of things can be now done with the assistance of IT. Some of you have mentioned already, the modern IT tools that help in job matching, but not everything is about that. It does require the approach, proper number of counselors, and then a good quality offer. Because, just to remind you, as Sajmira said, the major difference is this is a guarantee. So, if you take up this liability as a state, then you have to live up to it. And it's going to be really harsh, to do that in all 25 districts of Serbia once the measure really goes out, no matter how much money you've got, because it's not all about money. And you will also need to, work closely, as some of you have already mentioned, with employers, with other institutions. And just, as a little digression, when it comes to educational level that one of you mentioned earlier on, when we did a study 10 years ago about the transition of youth from education onto the first proper job, so we called it from education into a job market, there was a huge variety in how quick this transition was for the people of various educational level. So I do believe that we still have a fair amount of issue with early dropouts from the education all over the Western Balkans. Then also, even the students that pursue their studies all the way up to the highest level still have issues finding jobs unless they have, been properly coached, and unless they and their parents even pay attention to what's needed in the labor market. Because even back then, paradoxically, the shortest transition was not for the highest level of education. It was for the people that have, mainly good quality high schools with proper, trainings in craftsmanship and other things. So just my message is that, on one hand, we need to work with the National Employment Service far more closely, but it's more up to them than to us. The ILO is ready to do it as we do it all over the Western Balkans. And they really need to think of their own capacities and the quality of offer in order to live up to the expectations of the measure as such. And I stop here. I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Jovan. Actually, we have been quite strict to the time, so thank you from all of you. Actually, among a lot of things good things that this project has had, conferences like this and the regional cooperation, it's also the part that it gives space to youth, to young people to develop projects or ideas or other stuff. And now I will pass the floor to the studio in Sarajevo, and we will have a presentation from our Sarajevo-based grantee, PROI, Bosnia and Herzegovina, who will share the project Youth Action for EU Integration, advocating the Youth Guarantee Implementation Plan. Welcome, and you can now have the presentation. I don't know whether they will use, probably they will use a PowerPoint slides, so have patience and let's listen to them.
Perfect. Thank you. My name is Zekaj, and I will be representing PROI, the local Sarajevo-based organization that actually implemented the project in the past year or so. Youth Action for EU Integration, the project focused on advocating the adoption of the Youth Guarantee Implementation Plan, which unfortunately hasn't happened yet. And, as I prepared for this presentation and, tell you about the whole project, and the context that we are facing in Bosnia and Herzegovina, I was going back and forth between, being a very positive and inspiring, or just showing the real situation, which is serious, and we are obviously lagging. We're learning a lot today from our studio in Sarajevo about the experiences of others, and that's certainly going to be something that we will take into account as we move forward. At the heart of our project was a very simple message: to strengthen youth participation in policy reforms and to contribute to a more resilient, inclusive, and EU-integrated Bosnia and Herzegovina. So basically, we were attempting to open the doors for youth to be a part of decision-making processes in order to consequently, open the doors for Bosnia and Herzegovina's EU integration processes a little more, to give our contribution to the entire process. So from the very beginning, we designed the project as a bridge, and why the whole thing matters is something that can be broken down in many different points. But I listed a few. Youth employment in Bosnia and Herzegovina remains quite high, among the highest in Europe, among the highest in the region, and this is one specific thing about where the youth guarantee comes in through this reform processes that we're going to have to experience in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And something that my colleague Liliana already mentioned is we don't really have exact statistics that measures up to what the youth guarantee requirements are. So we know what the real situation is, disaggregated by specific conditions, situations, or backgrounds. Secondly, many young people in Bosnia lack access to skills needed for the economy. That's a second reform process that's going to be required. That's to address the discrepancy between the education system and the requirements of the job market. However, we can also flip the switch here and talk about the opportunities, the space there is for youth to bring in their IT know-how, the technological awareness into the whole process, and actually speed up the technological advancements in the country. And lastly, a positive thing is that Youth Guarantee has proven to be a very successful model for every young person under the age of 30 and understanding their specific needs and local situation. So our mission was to strengthen youth participation and to include them in the policy reforms. Sorry about that. So we designed the project as a bridge connecting the policymakers and the youth, and it was all based on a 2024 EU country report where Youth Guarantee was specifically mentioned and recommended for Bosnia and Herzegovina. One of the first things when we talk about key achievements, and it's going to sound very simple from my point of view, is that we had to talk a lot about the guarantee in Bosnia and Herzegovina throughout the entire process. There was a very little information available outside of the requirements posed by the European Union for our institutions. So outside of the institutions, there was very little knowledge, even from the civil society sector, and especially from youth all around the country, about the Youth Guarantee. And this expands to academia, to politicians, institutions, local public companies, and whatnot. So we mobilized voices across Bosnia and Herzegovina through youth, through our partners, through all of our networks, and reaching over 150,000 people. And if we include all the work that was done through social and traditional media from our partners as well, and the youth who were part of our project, that goes even higher. We managed to empower 30 youth leaders and CSO representatives from all around the country, to equipping them with advocacy, communication, and policy skills. And this is a very important point for us here, is that we deliberately sought to reach out youth and the organizations from all around the country. It was basically a common platform for all the youth in the country, and this not only allowed us to transcend these political, daily, political issues in the country, but merely phrase it as a socioeconomic progress, a platform that unites all the youth in Bosnia and Herzegovina who have so many things in common. But in addition to that, by bringing all of these diverse people, diverse youth from different types of youth organizations, civil society organizations, we were able to also learn about local specificities that really matter. And that's where Bosnia and Herzegovina also struggles, is to understand through outreach and understanding the local youth what their real issues are. Throughout the entire project, we were able to continuously provide policy recommendations in communication with our partners, working with youth, established a lot of new partnerships, and we have seen some progress, though we're still far behind. We're still looking into actually adoption of the Youth Guarantee implementation plan, but institutional progress was also achieved in the sense of collaboration between the institutions and the CSO or sector. Impact on youth, on CSOs around the country, on institutional impact and public awareness was quite high. So basically now we have young leaders all around the country who can actually push this agenda forward through their work in local communities. We have strengthened CSO organizations that are putting a lot of efforts into future work. We have a lot of know-how and a lot of knowledge that's been collected in this past year or so, and it signals a bit of a momentum that we've noticed in the country, is that the institutions are actually slowly starting to open up. Sometimes it's genuine, sometimes it's just to fill out a certain quota, but the tendency in itself to reach out to youth and actually have them involved is a positive step in itself. I'd like to share some of the specific lessons learned at one of our last slides, is that from the very beginning we had to talk a lot and understand the geography and the situation of all the relevant institutions, partners who are supposed to be a part of the process. So we had to get an early stakeholder engagement to ensure buy-in, and through continuous communication, coordination, and involvement in all the activities, that made everything much smoother, much easier. And the second part is that we were very much focused on capacity building in terms of working with youth. And without capacity building, youth-led advocacy just failed to do, because youth are not unable to approach with proper messaging and proper targeting the specific institutions without the support of those who actually know the topic and know what's really going on. Multisectoral collaboration is actually one of the tenets of the Youth Guarantee in itself, and it's going to push forward and catalyze a lot of required reforms in the country. However, it also signifies and shows a lot of legitimacy and expands policy impact. So it's not just simple, top-down approach where the institution adopts a policy and now implements it. This kind of multi-sectoral collaboration participation goes beyond that. And one of the most important lessons learned is that we were able to combine our advocacy through a number of different avenues, and combining online campaigns and constitutional and continuous institutional dialogues amplified our advocacy outcomes, and we were able to reach basically a lot of those who were not actually quite informed about the whole process. Looking ahead, I'm going to be very positive, hoping that the country adopts the national level implementation plan very soon. I'm going to say very soon because saying anything specific is just, for Bosnia's context, very, very hard. However, positive things that I'd like to say at the end is that we need to sustain our youth engagement. Like I said, we've noticed a shift in terms of the two-way communication. We need to localize implementation. So the information about specifics in local communities that we gathered is something that we shared. And now that needs to be taken into account. And following the piloting, we need to take those specificities into a countrywide implementation plan. Obviously, there are funds that are available there that will require work on our part, and that's certainly something that has had positive shift in a sense too. And lastly, one of the most important things is that we're going to have to continuously monitor and evaluate the work we do and the impact we're having on specific local communities and those most in need. I want to just finish with one specific point, is that, and that's one of the beauties of Youth Guarantee, is that it's a guarantee. It's a way to bring back the trust that the youth have lost into their institutions and rebuild that relationship and ensure that no human being under the age of 30 is actually left behind. And thank you again for the opportunity to speak and present our results. Thank you to the Center for Democracy Foundation, and I look forward to the rest of the conference.
Thank you very much for showing us these impressive results from the project. We have exactly 9 minutes before we finish. I promised to Erblin, the facilitator, that I will leave 10 minutes at the end for the recommendation, but I'm sorry, I will take 5 minutes from your recommendations, and I will open the discussion and will give priority to other studios, other panelists in being online, whether they would like to share something after hearing the full discussion. Let it be opportunity, challenge, or anything that came to their mind during hearing someone else. Anyone that would like to talk, just I think they should just turn on the microphone and we will hear them.
Can I intervene just to break this awful silence?
Yeah, please.
I mean, for me, an appeal is that, Youth Guarantee as a measure should not be observed aside from the overall labor market trends, that it needs to be followed by a lot of other a combination of measures that we, the cocktail that we in the ILO call the decent work agenda, because there are topics like nowadays it's becoming huge, the immigration of workers, fulfilling labor market gaps, with this importation of workers. Then the question of activation for us, we mentioned partly also, both Sajmira and I, the data question. It boils down to the question of how many of those registered job seekers are actually seeking employment and how many are not. Because, if there's a fair amount of those that are not really looking for a job, we should find ways of not excluding them from the labor market, but sort of giving priority in the registries of the National Employment Services to active job seekers. So again, with this cocktail of measures and hopefully proper social dialogue, I think that things will work well for all the Western Balkan economies.
Thank you very much for your input and your optimism, let's say. Would someone else from other studios like to share any final insights before I give the floor to my panelists here?
Is that?
Oh, yeah, please.
Yeah, yes, please. Just quickly, thank you again. I think I love the point from Belgrade that was just made, and that's one of the spaces where it's most that this multi-sectoral collaboration and specifically the role of CSO can come into play. I mean, different results in different countries in the region about the implementation of the youth guarantee, but what's become quite obvious, you know, researching the situation in the region for me is that a lot of us face very similar issues, that we don't really understand the complexity and the size of the youth who really need our support to the youth guarantee. And that's one of the most important, most powerful actually roles that the CSOs can play going forward, is to help the institutions, help specifically the local guys identify these marginalized communities of youth who, you know, especially need our help. And, you know, in a sense, you know, while, you know, it's depressing that the institutions don't understand, it's very empowering for us from the civil society sector to be able to, you know, step in and do our part. Thank you.
Thank you very much. If we don't have anyone else wanted to talk, I will give the opportunity to Sajmira and Anil if they would like to have closing remarks, or we continue with recommendation. Okay, before I give the word to Erblin, I will close here, and I thank each of you for enriching this discussion. I really enjoyed the discussion, and I hoped all of you had the space to give your perspective and maybe share lessons that we can all Balkan countries cooperate and take into account. As Sajmira said, Western Balkan is quite similar, but of course the national context sometimes make the difference. Erblin, please give us a recommendation, and thanks again from me.
Thank you so much. Okay, I have some very little time, so I would like to summarize all the discussion, and I would like to really thank you everyone for your input. As we discussed even here, the youth guarantee and this process is quite ambitious, and it requires a lot of structural reforms. And also there's a challenge, which actually I specified it here as a challenge, but also it's a recommendation as well, regarding the limited data of the target group that support the most vulnerable, the one that is out of the labor market, as one of the panelists said, to explore different approaches that diversify the program. Regarding the youth guarantee, there are main recommendations to increase the capacities of young people so that every process is standardized according to their needs. Also, the implementation part from the institutional side that requires a lot of human resources that remains a challenge, because it should be under consideration that that responds to the needs of the beneficiaries. Also, the outreach of young people, I mentioned it even before, because we need to really see and research of the structural challenges that any of the target group actually faces in their communities or in their countries. More cooperation was mentioned between the local and national institutions to make it more accessible to young people, but also like motivating more young people so that the local organization here can play a role to outreach more young people in the rural areas or in locations that are isolated to register and benefits from these opportunities. Also, another very important factor was the engagement of the private sector, which is an important stakeholders. As one of the panelists said, that it's very important to co-design the program that supports the young people and creates better opportunities. Wage subsidize was mentioned, that can be one of the benefits, but even other administrative benefits or even investments from the private sector to the program that can generate more funding and improve the implementation of the youth guarantee. Just two more things. Regarding the AI, we have discussed here that is a tool that I mean, we can see it even now that in this time that we're living, that reaches more target groups, but however has some advantages, as mentioned by Sajmira before, that they sometimes have to take it under consideration, the social protection, the uncertainties regarding the legal relationship, and also has to be regulated in the national level, so it fights informality. Also, this can be used as a tool to accelerate the implementation of youth guarantee and support the trends of the labor markets, so that the digitalization of the service can be effective, especially in the time that we're living, as I said before, but also that's the youth, the young people are very tech savvy, so that the implementation would be more improved.
Thank you, Erblin, for fantastically wrapping everything up. It's easy actually to be a good facilitator when the discussion is very to the point. This is the final remark from me. Thanks once again, and I will announce a 10-minute break before continuing with the next session and the presentation of the grantees projects, the grantees that benefited through this project. Thank you very much.